Yeah, as far as I can tell. Yeah, we're live. Hi everyone, how are you? Thank you for joining. This is our weekly Octant community meeting. Today is Ju- June 30. And I appreciate that you are joining us here. Remember that our code of conduct it still applies for these meetings, so we ask you to please read and abide by it. Also, to be able to catch up after the meeting and keep open our communication lines with you, we ask you to please add your name and the organization you represent to the agenda. So, having said that, welcome. Well, some status updates. Theme is growing. Um, we are VMware is hiring for a product designer role, which is you know seems to be something related with user experience and design for the product itself. So it looks like an exciting role, and also a product manager for Octant. So if you want to apply, if you know someone, please go ahead and apply for it. Okay, now for the updates on the project itself, we have a fix, something that Liam has been working on for TypeScript component generation. So if Liam could please share more details around that.
Yeah, so just some more visibility into how the overall kind of plugin ecosystem works. So basically, Octant's kind of backbone and structure is all in Go. And normally when you're creating a plugin, you will create these UI components in Go, and then they will be sent by Octant to the front end and displayed there. Um, and we recently added an option to write plugins in TypeScript as well. And we actually have code that will take the Golang UI components and then kind of transpile them into components that are accessible from TypeScript. So it should be theoretically an automated process where basically anytime any changes are made to the Go components, the TypeScript ones will update accordingly. And then we have procedures in place to update the package on NPM as well. It turns out there were a few recent modifications that actually prevented this generation from working successfully, which meant that using the latest generated TypeScript code was not possible with the latest version of Octant. So finding a few issues and fixing some edge cases in the TypeScript component generation code solves these issues. And the PR is currently open, but all the tests are passing. So once it's approved, we should be good to go for allowing TypeScript components without any hassle for the latest version of Octant, which is going to be pretty useful, especially as we're trying to kind of expand plugin options and the scope of Octant.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. That's excellent work, Liam. I really appreciate that. And yeah, that's a good one to unblock a few people as well, because I think there's some people trying out some plugin stuff on the latest versions, and it's causing some hangups with related to the forms and the components. So yeah, this is just great. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Liam. So okay, for the next point, I think Wayne added.
Yeah, so I put this here. I wanted to bring it up just to discuss and see what people's thoughts were. Essentially, we were looking at cutting an O.22 for a target of July 13th. We wanted to do have a set of key discussions, two of them in particular. One was around kind of clarifying our roadmap and adding some more detail and scoping some things out a bit better underneath the roadmap headings. And then the other piece of that was after we clarified the roadmap, we kind of wanted to pick a sprint goal and align with some like key objectives for the outcome of the sprint. And we haven't been able to have that meeting yet to do the roadmap clarifying. So ultimately, what we're stuck with is like kind of in this like middle ground where we have some good issues to work on. By the time we have the discussion and plan, we'll essentially have, a U.S. holiday week plus one more week to actually like land on the 13th. So my thought was take all the work that we have in flight now, the things that we've been working on, some of the work that Luis has been doing and Vikram and Liam have been doing, and some of the stuff that I have preparing to land that actually have some public API changes for our package folder. Call that, get all that stuff kind of brought together, which is currently being tracked in our O21.1 project, which was going to be a bug fix release. Bring that all into O.22. Add in the issues that Scott Rosenberg raised last week as being important to him, and then call that kind of our O.22 release, and cut it when the current set of bug fix issues and the two features that Scott had suggested were completed. And then in the meantime, we can take that time to kind of make sure we're having our roadmap clarification, make sure we're doing a sprint goal, and make sure that all of the effort that was going to go into O.22 ultimately ends up in O.23, but we don't put ourselves in a situation where we're trying to crunch things to hit the cadence. I'd rather establish a normal, healthy cadence of releases, and if process that needs to happen doesn't happen, we're still able to release software, we're still able to get good features in, but then allowing those processes to happen just to the next version. Because if we have I guess the point is, if we have that healthy cadence, then when these processes happen, there's a natural place for the outcomes of those to land, which is the next coming up release, if that makes sense. Anyway, general thoughts, yes, no, concerns, love it, hate it, just putting it out there. Good, okay, great. Good, solid feedback, okay.
I wanted to say, yeah, release all those changes sooner than later because I want to consume them, but I don't need you to do an official release. So I could just, take the code off master. It doesn't really matter.
And I think that another part of this is that the work that Liam is doing with changing with the upgrades, with the updates to the TypeScript component generation, as well as the updates that will then flow into the upstream library for TypeScript. Honestly, those are a whole version step. That, like, calling those a point release would be doing them a disservice because there are API changes involved. So I think also this kind of just makes that managing that a lot easier. We just get to tag the next TypeScript library with O.22 and people can consume it as a whole new version. So that's kind of factoring in here as well.
Got it. So any
Okay,
additional
well,
comments on that? Thoughts?
Take that as everyone's good with it. Most people yell loudly when they disagree, so I'll take the silence as agreement.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's all
Liam
I had on
was
that.
raising his hand. Okay. No, I thought Liam was about to say something.
Oh, no, yeah, just real quickly, I agree with Wayne. I think it makes sense because preserving kind of parity between Octant versions and the all related, plugin utilities is really important so that people kind of understand exactly what's compatible very quickly. And yeah, honestly, just whatever makes more sense in terms of making it clear that a specific version of Octant is going to work with a specific version of the plugin library seems to be pretty important, especially because it hasn't always, matched up. And even now, with the 0.21 release of the TypeScript plugin library, some things are not working. And so maybe, bumping to 0.22 would give more of an indication that some of these issues are resolved.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Liam. I don't know if you Wayne want to add something more to that point, or no?
Nope.
That's clear. Thank you. Okay, well, now for the discussion points, we have some things that here, I believe it was Jamie who added here this topic. So if you want to comment something there.
Yeah, looks like Wayne pushed something like today or yesterday. They may have resolved it, but yeah, when we wanted to bring our own streaming client factory implementation, we were kind of using Octant as a library, and as soon as we started to do it, we realized, oh, we can't even write the implementation that we want because one of those methods in the signature contains an internal type. So I figured this would be a time to be like, hey, I can think of a few ways around this. It seems like it could require some kind of structural thing or exposing a bunch of stuff that you might be hesitant about. So, but it sounds like you may have already done it. So maybe I should, pass the speaking stick to Wayne.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I pushed up a new. This work was in flight for the last couple of days. I had to rebase and refactor some stuff based off of the streaming WebSocket interface changes. But yeah, so if we click on the config-interface link there, that is bringing that whole dash interface out into the package folder, which also includes the CRD watcher and error store interfaces are now out into the package folder. I did an audit of where they were used within internal, and everything was essentially using the dash interface except for a couple packages, which I was able to convert to using the public interfaces and not relying on like internal structs or internal expectations. So it was pretty safe to. The lifting effort was pretty low to move those out. It was more of the updating all of the tests and mock generation and things like that. So that's there in this PR if you wanted to take a look at it and try it as a branch to see if it fixes all of your needs. If not, comment on the PR and I'll be sure to adjust or fix anything that I might have missed. But I think this covers all of the previously internal packages that were being passed into public interface definitions.
So Daniel from my team is on the call. I don't know, Daniel, are you there? Does this does this make sense to you?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is basically the core thing that we needed to be able to do that. There was also because the actual changes that we need to do to our custom client streaming factory are very small. It's just so I tried to basically copy paste the current default implementation and do the small changes. And there were a couple of methods as part of, I think it was WebSocket client. There is a read pump and write pump methods, which are actually not exported. So like they start with lowercase. That will be a small change that could also help us with what we need to do. And it should be a fairly small change.
Okay, yeah. If you have the time, it would be great if you could go to the PR and make a comment and even highlight just the specific area. I know the read pump and write pump area that you're talking about. but or maybe we can sync up later and go into the details of what it is you're trying to do, because I think my default is going to be probably just duplicate them because the implementation detail of how you read and write is that. But if the methods themselves, if the signatures for the methods need to be exported so that you can have your own implementations, then that's something we can do.
Cool. Yeah, I will dig a little bit deeper into this, and I will comment on the PR.
Great. That'd be excellent.
I was going to say, just, so that people don't feel in the dark, to quickly describe what we're trying to do is we really want to use the same WebSocket streaming factory, whatever that is in Octant already. The main piece that we want to override is the creation of the client IDs. So we have this use case where we're trying to have a custom store where we want to be able to expect that plugin authors will be providing the client ID that they're requesting data from the store on behalf of. And we want the store to be able to look up authentication information based on people's client IDs. So the default WebSocket client factory generates fresh UUIDs for everybody, and we want to be able to actually pass in the client ID so that it'll be an actual ID key from a database that we control. So otherwise, we want the actual WebSocket mechanics is all the same to us. It's really just that one little piece of taking an HTTP request and pulling a UUID out of it. But I think that's it for us then. It sounds like Daniel and Wayne will sync up on some of the details. Also awesome. I was expecting this to take weeks, and it took minutes.
That's great. Thank you so much, team. Okay, now some more good news. Thank you, Wayne, for meeting the stretch goal of testing KCP.
Yeah, so I was hoping to have a demo for this. I don't follow my own rules, and I was futzing with it just before this meeting, and it broke. So, I was like, I can add one more thing to it, it would be cool, and now it doesn't work. But I will say that with minimal effort, I was able to get Octant to connect to a KCP cluster, and it just kind of worked, which was pretty great. There are some things that happen during startup that Octant makes some assumptions about what resources are available, and for like our overview pages and workload pages. In KCP by default, those things aren't there until a cluster has synced and made them part of the resource list. So there's a little bit of I'm going to write basically the outcome of this I think is positive. I'm going to write some issues that kind of cover what I'm about to talk about now, and then we can, as we talk about our roadmap and goal planning stuff, we can prioritize these issues and look at potentially using KCP more in depth with Octant. But the second line there, the assumptions about resources, we can do a better job. This will tie into actually I think the error handling that stuff that Luis is working on. Once we have a place to kind of display errors, we can then capture them and say, hey, that resource isn't in the cluster. We tried to list it, but it's not here. And then the other thing is that having some form of plugin to deal with the cluster CRD and the negotiated API CRDs that KCP uses would actually really enhance the experience of using KCP with Octant, because you would be able to just kind of fire up Octant looking at an empty KCP instance, and then browse or paste in or give it the location of your kube configs, have that generate the cluster CRD, and from there you would start seeing those resources sync into KCP without ever having to like step out and run things on the command line. So it's a very interesting kind of what's the word? I think they're very symbiotic. So I think we'll continue to explore it, and they're continuing to expand and add features, and so yeah. Anyway, that's kind of the outcome there. Some issues to come with some detailed explanations around uh, the work I could see us doing to potentially backend KCP with Octant, or backend Octant with KCP.
Mhm.
Jamie, you had a
Jamie, yeah,
Um,
please.
yeah, I think you may have just answered it. uh, but I was just curious about whether there was an opinion. You're experimenting with KCP. Is your thinking here that um, Octant folks could target a pre-existing KCP, and like this, you could sort of integrate with known KCP workflows, or is the idea that you'd actually shrink wrap KCP and Octant ship them together, like Octant would come with its own bundled KCP kind of thing? It sounds like it's the latter.
well, it's both, right? So I think the first step is to just make Octant work well with KCP when someone's using it. Right now, it doesn't because of those assumptions that it makes. So, and this is a broader problem within Octant that doesn't just impact KCP, but it's very noticeable in KCP because it is such a minimal set of resources that are there. Octant just fails in really uh, interesting ways when like basic things that ship with Kubernetes aren't there. So that's like the first step, and then the second part would be to shrink wrap it and have it underpin Octant as the essentially the kube config manager, because right now we kind of do all that manually. We have this kube config context thing that we manage and watch contexts and handle it all, and this doesn't even have to. This is doing all that work for us, and it's also doing the work of syncing resources, and it's also doing the work of, polling the, refreshing from the cluster. So it's a way to potentially offload a lot of the work that Octant has baked into its code to another, to a piece of code, to a project that's dedicated for that purpose, essentially.
Yeah, it sounds really dope to be able to have, rather than Octant's sort of data layer being a kube config, it's a KCP server, a KCP client. A ton of simplifying assumptions. Almost in the business of becoming a kind of, as you described, that like cluster plugin being like a UI for KCP or whatever, that you can be like manage KCP and attach clusters, and you have a clean UI to do it with. That's very cool.
Yeah, and one of the added benefits we get here too, that just kind of like I was noticing as I was playing around with it, is we also we can just make assumptions about what API calls we're allowed to make, because we have unfettered access to the KCP cluster. Now, those clusters that are configured as upstream clusters to KCP might only have access to a single namespace or access to a single set of resources, but KCP does that for us, and then all we care about is making our watch calls to KCP.
Yeah, it's not just your data layer; it's like your authorization layer too. It's nice.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, so that's it. Watch out for issues coming up around this. They'll mention KCP explicitly, but some of them are going to be a little more generic, just to kind of fix more of the systemic issues that were uncovered by using such a limited Kubernetes API. But and then a couple will be directly, exploring further KCP.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, now for the open Q&A. I don't know if someone else from the team or someone here in the call has questions. I have a couple of them. One of them comes from a conversation I was having with one of our users. He runs a consulting firm in Europe, and he was mentioning that isn't there a way, when I start Octant, I would like to filter out in some way, like passing some configuration file or some other way to filter out resources that I don't want to see, right? So, and he mentioned that this was especially useful, in his opinion, for people that is new to Kubernetes. My opinion is that for you to filter out, you need to know what do you want to filter, right? You cannot be really new to Kubernetes kind of users to be able to establish a proper filter. But I don't know if that will make sense. I promise to. He couldn't join because it's really late for him. But I promise to bring the question here. Will that make sense? I don't know if the question is clear enough.
I guess I'd ask what's being each one of these tables is filterable. So like you can see there's a filter on each one of the columns. So those are easily filterable as they are now. So did he mean filtering like the top level items? Like,
Yeah,
I don't want to see pods on this page.
yeah,
Is
because
that what he was
I'm
talking
not.
about?
Yeah, I'm not completely sure of his use case. I'm still retrieving more information, but it seems like he managed multiple clusters for different customers, right? So he would like to, uh, you know, bring them their Octant already configured to see only what they have to see, right? Not rely on them on the end user to configure filters inside of Octant, but just having the tool filter out from the beginning. So I don't know if that makes sense. I just promised to bring it
Uh,
here.
yeah, I mean, I would like to maybe get them to create a discussion next time you talk to them. I
Okay.
think we need to have a longer form discussion around what it is they're trying to do,
Okay.
because both I think the second thing you described, right, to me that's a set of you configure either a namespace or some form of RBAC for a user, and then you hand them that kube config when you hand them Octant, and so all they see is the things you want them to see. Um, the idea of not displaying like whole resources on the overview is kind of like a anti-goal of Octant. Like the goal is we want to show you everything that's in there so you don't have to go hunting for it, and then we want to make it so that when you know, like what's a pod and you click into it, you're getting a summary and some detail that kind of helps you understand, and you're also getting some search terms that can help you go Google and learn more about these things. So like not showing them wholly is just kind of probably not something we would do. But having the ability to say like, here's a set of filters that I always want applied when I start Octant, and adding that to the preferences, or here's a, you know, you can already set a default namespace. You can already set the view. So like, take me right into the deployments, so that way when you load Octant, the thing you're looking at is deployments for the default namespace, and that's all you see. Things like that are already supported, but I think ultimately we just need to have a discussion to find out what it is they're trying to do.
Got it. Thank you. And one final question that is from me. I was using the supply YAML window, and I don't know. I don't know if that's only for me, but when I hit here apply, I have a confirmation at the top of the screen, but I don't know if I just turn my face a couple of seconds or minutes and move back. I don't have any confirmation that it applied the file indeed, or the configuration indeed. So
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's we have an open issue for it. It's a long-standing
okay.
horrible UX thing within Octant. You know, there's not a. We're hiring a product designer.
Okay.
This is
Got it.
definitely one of the reasons we're hiring a product designer.
Makes sense.
They're right now it's like we can dismiss it, but then if you like, we have no great way of signaling that the alert we sent was success, warning, or error. right? So if you dismiss by default on apply, you may be dismissing when there's an error, and then you're losing the content of the apply YAML window, right? So we just kind of chose to leave it up, and you get the alert in the back that's like behind the shadow, and yeah, it's not. I agree with you. It's not great. It's definitely something we want to improve and make better. I think this is also when we get into like rich error handling, something where you could apply this, it would dismiss it. The server would respond and say, "Hey, that failed," and then in the error viewer, you would be able to open up your YAML that you attempted to apply and also see the error, right? And be able to like, and have it highlighted in the actual editor, for example. Like, hey, here's why it didn't apply. This line here, you can't have those characters in like in an image name, right? That's an example where like image name is only a certain set of characters. So, yeah, you're right. It's a bad experience. That's all. I guess that's all I can say.
Yeah, and status, no. Status is historically a really difficult UI issue. Ask anybody from Microsoft who worked on like file download status. You know, you have 19 days left, 30 seconds, 17 days, a minute and a half. Like, this is historically just problematic and difficult to do. So yes, I think it should be addressed, and we'll definitely create some design issues around that for sure.
Cool. Thank you so much. Okay, any additional questions, comments? Someone here? No? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.